something that took me way too long to learn. It is a lie that more options means more freedom. For many of us, having more access to apps on our phones, having a closet full of choices of clothes to wear does not lead to freedom. It leads to a cluttered home, a cluttered mind, a cluttered life. One of the greatest gifts I've ever given myself was to radically minimize and simplify my life to create the space for joy and peace. There is a lot we cannot control in life, but radically simplifying what we can control will give you more margin and capacity to handle the uncontrollables. Today, I want to share 7 micro habits that have radically changed and simplified my life. Small things that have brought big impact. If you're new here, I'm Jess, and I make videos on slow living, minimalism, and intentional motherhood. I'm confident that these will help you simplify your life. Number 1, massively cut down on your inventory. More stuff will lead to more stress. Fumio Sasaki talks about in his book this idea of a silent to-do list. It is the idea that everything we own talks to us. You know when you walk in your home and when it's really cluttered and it's overwhelming, it almost feels noisy. It's not peaceful and it's not still. And that's because every single thing we own is giving us constant messages about what we need to do to take care of it. That package needs to be returned. That makeup is expired, I need to replace it. That dress that doesn't fit me. The dishes have to be done. One of the best things that you can do is to radically minimize the amount of talking objects in your house. Because the truth is that everything we own does need to be cared for. And the fact is that a lot of people have very unrealistic expectations on what they should be able to manage. So don't compare yourself to what you think you should be able to manage. Ask yourself if your home is a quiet and still peaceful place, or if it's noisy. And if it's noisy, there's too much stuff talking to you. And so a small habit that I do to stay on top of clutter, and which will over time, if enacted regularly, will massively cut down on the inventory in your home, is very simple. Keep a garbage bag or box in an accessible area in your home. I personally have a garbage bag in my bedroom closet for the upstairs, and then I have a big box in my garage because my garage is right off our kitchen. I simply, as I'm going throughout my day, as I'm getting dressed, if I notice that this doesn't really fit me anymore, like this is not something I can wear anymore, I put it in my bag. When I'm making dinner and I grab a utensil and I notice we haven't used this other utensil in a while, we don't really need it, I grab it, I pop it in the garage, I pop it in the box. Once a month, I grab that bag and I grab that box and I drive it to a donation center on a day when I'm doing errands. I just put it in the car. If you're more ambitious, you could do it every week, every 2 weeks. This allows you to have a constant, gentle, effortlessly kind of decluttering routine in your home. Number 2, to-do lists, but the right way. It might not be the right way, but it's the way that I personally have found to be way more effective than how most people do to-do lists. So I call it the priorities of the day list. Okay, so every day, whether it's the night before, during that week, whatever, I have a list of 3 to 5 tops priorities of the day. These can be social engagements that I don't want to forget to go to. These can be small things like I need to run and get eggs today because we're out. These are time sensitive, specific to that day things that are the high priority items. Now, writing a to-do list, that's not a novel concept, right? It frees up so much mental burden to get things on a piece of paper, to know that it is not your mind's responsibility to constantly keep track of all the things that have to be done. On the flip side, notice that this is not a mile-long to-do list. I remember way back when I was really into read all these books about productivity, it was like, make a to-do list about every single thing you're gonna do that day. But the problem is that you have these mile-long to-do lists that you will never finish. You cannot do it all. You cannot do it all at the same time. So I limit to 4 to 5 priorities of the day, tops. It forces me to prioritize. Prioritizing allows for a more simplified life because you focus on what's important and you let go of the rest. Before I did this, in my head, I was, quote, more productive because I was constantly moving. I was constantly trying to do stuff, but I was scatterbrained. I would forget what I needed to. The whole day I was thinking, okay, what else do I need to be doing right now? What else needs to be done today? And it was more of a mental burden for me because every single moment of every day I was trying to prioritize as the moment came up in my brain. Number 3, meal planning. Planning my meals is a non-negotiable, something I do weekly to make it streamlined and to completely remove the mental burden. I don't worry anymore at 4:30, oh wait, what am I gonna do for dinner? Is there something defrosted? We're out of this. None of that. So I'm gonna share exactly how I do it. It sounds so simple, it kind of feels weird to share, but it has actually been life-changing for me. So I'm just gonna tell you exactly how I do it. So once a week, usually on the weekend, I take out my planner, because you'll see in the days I have the priority to-do list, and at the bottom I just write D, and I write every night what we're gonna be making for dinner. Very simple. It takes me about 20 to 30 minutes, usually on the weekend. I'll grab a few cookbooks, or I also have a running Google Doc, very simple, of all the meals that we really loved as a family. It can be as fancy and exciting or super simple as you want, but it's planned. And then when I have it laid out like that, I know exactly what needs to be done. I know what we need to be getting from the grocery store. I know if we're gonna make, sourdough pizza on Fridays, on Thursday, one of the things I'll put in my priority list is to start the pizza dough so that it's risen and it's ready to go for Friday's dinner. Then when I make the meal, I always make enough for double portions so that we have leftovers for lunch the next day. So if on Thursday I'm making pasta with meat sauce, I make 2 pounds of ground beef, extra pasta, and I put it in Tupperware, and the next day for lunch, my husband and I, my daughter, that's what we're eating for lunch. I've shared before about how I cook a lot of foods from scratch, and I don't buy a lot of snack foods, and I've gotten questions about, like, how do you do that as a mom with a toddler? Like, how does that work? This is how I do it. I meal plan. Number 4, let's talk about simplifying your technology, specifically social media. A simple micro habit that I love and was my first entry into minimizing my media and has worked for a lot of people is to completely get rid of your social media apps off of your phone and only access them on your laptop or desktop for a specific designated time. So whether that's 45 minutes on Saturday mornings, that's the time that you have to go on your computer and look at Instagram, or it's 20 minutes every night after your child goes down, whatever it is, make it sectioned off and make sure that you don't have access to it on your phone. So much of the cluttered feeling that you have in your day comes from being massively distracted and overstimulated. For most people, the source of that is their phones. If that phone does not have strict boundaries, it will run your life. It will take a little bit. You'll notice yourself reaching for your phone, but you will see how much downtime you actually have and how much breathing room has been just like injected into your everyday once you do this. Number 5, time blocking. In his book, The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt talks about multitasking, and he says this, quote, "People can't actually multitask. All we can do is shift our attention back and forth between tasks, and while we waste a lot of time on each shift." There's been a lot of studies showing this more and more, that this idea of multitasking really is a myth, and it produces more cortisol, it's more stressful, and it really actually takes away from the quality of work we can do at a specific given time. Unitasking, which is focusing on one task at a time. Time blocking is the way that I logistically practice unitasking. This involves focusing only on a given task for a certain amount of time. Now, this can obviously be really fluid with kids because when you're around children, you will always be focusing on them. Even when you're doing something else, you're always attuned to them and their needs and making sure they're okay. Early on in motherhood, I used to really struggle when I would get my daughter down for a nap. I would get like 20 to 30 minutes tops where that she would sleep away from me. And I would come downstairs and I would just immediately be like, okay, I have 20 minutes to get a whole bunch of stuff done. What do? I would look at the dishes were piled up, I would start doing the dishes, and then I would notice, oh my gosh, the table's really dirty. So I would do a dish, and then I would come over and I'd swipe the table, and then I would notice that there was laundry on the ground. So I'd take the laundry and I'd go upstairs, oh, I'm doing the dishes. I come back to the dishes, 20 minutes went by, she would wake up, nothing was done. It looked like I did nothing. I made zero progress in any one thing. Most days in the afternoon, I do about 30 to 60 minutes of editing, writing, whatever that may be. And I tell my daughter's old enough now, this is mommy's work time. Mommy's gonna work on her project. She usually has an activity she's playing. I get interrupted for sure, but in those 30 to 60 minutes, I don't try to work and start the laundry and do some dishes and prep dinner. For those 30 to 60 minutes, I am doing YouTube work. I am not doing anything else. I don't open any other tabs on my laptop. I don't try to order groceries. I don't try to do any of that. I think in the world of slow living, which I make videos a lot about slow living, a common misconception is that it's there's no structure and you just kind of flow through your days. And for some people, maybe that's the way that they do it. But, if you're running a household or you have multiple kids or maybe you're working, you can have goals, ambitions, or be productive while living a very slow and gentle paced life. ultimately, for me, what it has come down to is to constantly prioritize so that I can be focused on my highest values and priorities. Time blocking or, unitasking, it has allowed me to make progress towards goals without falling into hustle culture. Number 6, micro habit that has massively super simplified my life. Carving out a rest time every week. I've shared this before, but my family and I, we started the practice of taking a Sabbath one day a week. We carve out activities that are truly restful for our family. We spend time outside, we go to the trail, we hike, sometimes we have a movie night. It's things that are purely for the sake of restoring and connection time. It was radical. I mean, for someone that never rested, it was very radical for me. This has massively simplified my life in many ways. One of the biggest ones being that when you prioritize rest, you are forced to simplify because you are recognizing your limits. I used to say all the livelong day, I work too much. Like, I am studying too much. I never take days off. Like, I need a vacation. Like, I need a break. I would say that all the time. I never took the steps to create tiny moments of rest just in my day-to-day or in my rhythm of life. And so there was a big chasm between what I knew I needed to do and what I was actually doing. Integrating that rhythm into my life forced me to see the limits I needed to draw in other areas of my life. It allowed me to embrace boundaries instead of reject them. And in doing so, I have created so much more space for simplicity and peace in my day-to-day and ultimately just in the way that I feel going through life. The last micro habit that was super helpful in helping me super simplify my life was learning to say no graciously. One of the biggest narratives I had to get rid of on my journey to simplifying my life and slowing down was the narrative that said that saying no is mean and selfish. If you are someone that feels like you are just really longing to simplify your life, you feel cluttered, overwhelmed, restless in your life, that is a huge sign that you need to create margin, that you need more space in your life. Boundaries create that space. We have been sold a lie that more options is more freedom. Look at technology, more apps, more things. It will give you more freedom, but what has it actually done? It doesn't make us feel more free. It makes us feel enslaved. It makes us feel decision fatigue. It makes us feel stressed. Limits, boundaries, they are the guiding posts that create the space to thrive. Don't be afraid of making them. If you don't create them, your days, the way you spend your time, your life will ultimately end up being dictated by other people, other people's values, what other people want from you, what other people's dreams and aspirations are, not yours. You can say no in kind and gracious ways. And sometimes it's not even a no. Sometimes it's a not right now, not for this season, not this week. One of my biggest litmus tests in my personal life to show me that I have been really loose with my boundaries and I need to practice putting them in and saying no more is when I find myself rushing. If I notice that our family's pace has been rushed, we are doing too much. There is too many demands on our time, or maybe my mental resources, I've taken too much on for work. If I am feeling rushed in my life, I immediately reevaluate the boundaries that I have and the limits that need to be put into place. If there's one that you're called to more than the others, let me know in the comments below. I would love to chat with you. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next video.